Okay, Mark again, talking about my burnt out motor on the Samebike lo26 350 watt. So this is my motor that was burnt out. It's all black there. This motor turns, it's really hard to turn really hard to turn this. As you can see, I pulled out all the wires. There are these 3 bullet connectors here that go to the actual motor power, and these other 6 ones go to the Hall effect connector. That's this connector here, that white connector there, they come out of there. There are little springs on each of these, whether you can actually see it. There's a little spring in there, and you just have to put it back to push it in, but you've got to take that off in order to get this out. And when you put this cable back, this is the burnt out one and this is a good one. Now this is good because GearBest sent me the new motor, and it took about 21 days, 22 days from me. What I did is I went onto the GearBest website where I bought the bike from, and I just did messages to the seller. They asked me for a photo and also asked me a video, and I sent them a video of what the motor was, how it was terrible, making awful noise, not really. They gave me an email address and I sent it to them, that info, and then they FedExed me the new motor. And the new motor, as you can see, is it's got the planetary gears on the back. Okay, they also sent one of these bearings. This is a 6802 RS, and you can buy them for about 3 or 4 quid. If you see in the back of the wheel, there's one of those bearings, and there's also a bearing, the same bearing, in the back of the gear mechanism. So they sit on both these parts of the motor. So if you've got noisy motors, it might be worth taking these out. I'm going to knock that bearing out and replace it with the one they've sent to me. Okay, so here, okay, this is the new wire. You can probably see a little bit easier now on this now. You can see there's a little bit of metal sticking out. Now, all you have to do is push that into the back of this connector here. Sorry, to this side. So the connector sits out there. But before doing that, you've got to take this wire and you've got to thread it through everything. Now, the first thing it's got to go through is it's got to go through this washer. So you've got to thread all those wires through the washer. No, sorry, tell a lie, sorry. You thread it through the back of the gear cassette. So that all goes through here, comes out this side. Then you go through the washer. And then you go through this torque washer. And that bit, the nodule bit, that bit has got to be sticking outwards, away from there. I know so when you actually fit them, when you actually fit it back onto the bike again, you've got these 2 bits. This are in the inside of the frame. Then you have the guard that fits on over the derailleur, and then you have the nut that goes on the outside. The old one has also got these washers which pad it out, or spacers, which I'll move out and move to this new motor. The other thing is with this one, the planetary gears actually just fall off. So if I lift that, you can see I can lift the planetary gear off. There's a little, what's called a Woodruff key in there. This little thing in here. I can take it out if I want. This little piece of metal, yeah. That lines up with the notch in there. So when you put this back on, that's the line up. That prevents it from moving. Okay, so I'm now going to reassemble this. Put this back on, knock the bearing out, fit the new bearing, route it all through all the washers and everything, through the gear mechanism and rebuild my rear wheel. So that's what I'm going to do. Just pause this now. Okay, so now I've threaded the cable through the gear cassette mechanism, through the one washer, which just runs against that part of the axle, and then this other one which has the torque lug sticking outwards, and actually I've put that on the wrong way around. I think the torque lug has to stick down. Hang on a minute. Yeah, I've just changed that round. I've just pulled this off the end and turned it around and put it back in, because this is where the cable exits here, and that sticks down in the gap in the frame. That prevents all this moving. Sorry, this moving, the motor moving. That locks it into the frame. Now you can see I've still got all the cables at the end here. I did see a video on YouTube of a guy, Michael, someone in Ireland, and to remove this cable, he cut these cables. He cut that off there, and then he was going to solder all these cables back on again. That's not necessary. With some long nose pliers, you just pull the little springs in and just pull it out of the connector. I did make a note of all the colours where they come from, but I think they do match up with the controller. So here's the little white connector on the controller. This is the Hall effect, which gives speed and so on. I mean, you can see the colours there. So we've got red, white and black this side, yellow, green and blue the other side, which match up with the colours of these to put them back in there. So I'm now going to fit that white connector. With the white connector, you can get it through the hole on the bike back to the controller. I did get it through, so I can fit that now just on the bench, which I'm going to do. There we go. So I've just pushed all the pins back in again. Yellow, white, red. Sorry, black, white, red, yellow, green, blue. And they should line up with the connectors on the controller. So now I've got the motor there with everything threaded through, the nut and the special torque washer, the gear cassette on the outside there, and there's the motor. I may or not replace the bearing. I don't think the bearing was gone, but let's have a quick look. Okay, I didn't replace the bearing because there really was no play at all or anything in there at all. So here we go, we've put the screws back on. So I've got a functional wheel. If I turn the motor, I'm getting no play or noise or anything from it at all. One of the things is you've got to be really careful with those Phillips. One of them wouldn't come out. It's so easy to round them. I think it's a stupid design. I think they should have been Allen bolts, because Phillips round so, and they're quite torqued up quite high. As for my previous video, I've actually got this 1000 watt motor fitted on my bike at the moment, with a different controller, with the controller just mounted there at the moment, with a different display and everything. I've done about 230 miles on this, and I'm really impressed with the motor. The way it was configured to start with, though, it absolutely ate the battery. But it had ridiculously overpowered. In 7th gear, I'm going up any hill with no effort at all. Didn't change down at all. And by reducing the current to the controller and reducing the maximum top speed, well, first time I took it out, I got barely 20 miles out of it, and I'd run out of, and the battery went flat. I went out yesterday, I did 31 miles, and I had about 65% battery left. And that's climbing up some hills, and this hill climb's much better. The motor is absolutely silent. I will do another video of this. I have actually ordered another controller, a smaller one, that should refit in the bike there. Yeah, with these Gillette type waterproof cables. And it's only about 30 £5 or something. And if that fits in there, then I probably won't move back to this other motor. Although these Samebike motors, they are frugal with battery. I was impressed with the distance I could do, and it probably is better than this one. And it was adequate. I wouldn't have done anything unless this motor had burnt out. But I was thinking it was going to take me weeks to get another motor. But amazingly, they've sent me one after about 3 weeks. But so I may strip it there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect everything up from the Samebike on the bench here, because I've got everything: throttle, display, everything, controller. I'm just going to route the battery through to the controller here. These controllers, that connector there, that's called a Dean's connector, or a Dean connector rather, which is the one connected to the battery. They've got little springs on them. They're high current. If I come back to this, they are high current LiPo connectors, and you need to solder these on to if you want to change the battery connection. But I think I mentioned before, I bought a bag of all these. There's 20 in there, and they come with they're 20 plugs and sockets, and they all come with the heat shrink stuff. So that was about £9 or something, made in China, as everything is. I will demonstrate soldering one of those on, because it's actually not very difficult at all. And I'll run this up on the bench, and hopefully this is working, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to fit this back to the bike or whether I'm going to leave my other motor. These 1000 watt motors though, I said there was a link on the controller that would turn it to 250. It's not a 250. All it is just reducing the current from the controller. It's a 1000 watt motor. You can buy these everywhere. This kit came from Voilamart, but all this stuff is interchangeable. You get different controllers, KT controllers, different displays, different this. I'd probably, if I had my time again, who knows, I might have just built my own e-bike, because all these bits are quite straightforward to fit. Anyway, I'll try and run this up now on the bench. Okay, I've connected everything up. Display, controller, throttle, and just connected to the motor that I've just changed the coils in. I'm just operating the throttle here. So it seems as though it's operational. So all my bits are functional. That's good. So anyway, that's how to change the motor, and you can see I've just connected this back. I didn't cut any of these connectors. It's the motor connection there. That's the Dean's connector. It connects to the battery. And yeah, that's all done then.